Hello everyone and welcome back to Devlog time. Today I'll be creating some new backgrounds for Ribbit Rattle and walking you through my process as a beginner game developer. If you're new here, Ribbit Rattle is a deck building roguelike inspired by Slay the Spire. It's my solo project about a small frog battling skeleton-like enemies. I've been documenting the progress here on YouTube, so if you're interested in the game's development, stick around. I'm using Sprite to create the backgrounds and Godot to implement them into the game. For the canvas size, I've chosen 320 by 180 pixels because it scales perfectly into 1920 by 1080 resolution without any distortion. As for the color palette, I'm sticking with Splendor 128. It's a preset palette I selected for the entire game. Keeping consistent colors across the project really helps maintain a cohesive art style. Before diving into drawing, it's important to think about the composition of the background and how it interacts with gameplay. Different games use backgrounds in unique ways to enhance their visuals and complement the player experience. For example, in Celeste, the backgrounds are vibrant and dynamic, creating a strong sense of atmosphere and progression without distracting from the platforming action. To keep things organized, I'm dividing the screen into 3 sections. This is the middle of the screen, where the battles take place. The goal here is to keep it as plain and distraction-free as possible. Think of it as the neutral zone that allows the characters and the action to take center stage. This section sits behind the player's hand. When players are strategizing and deciding their moves, they'll naturally glance at this part of the screen. Adding a bit of texture or detail here can make the experience more visually engaging without being overwhelming. The top part of the screen has the least gameplay interaction, making it the perfect space for some details. This is where we can add elements that can reflect the game's world. I knew I wanted a forest background, so I'm starting off with some trees. To create depth, I'm making the trees that are further away lighter in color. For the forest floor, I didn't want to go overboard with details, so I decided to cover it up with bushes. I'm making a few different variations and placing them on separate layers. I'm also reusing the same bushes for tree leaves, which ties everything together, and filling up the bottom of the background with even more bushes to keep it consistent. Next, I'm adding a dirt floor with some shading under the bushes to give it more depth. From there, it's all about details. Some rocks, pebbles, flowers and grass to make the scene feel alive. I'm drawing 5 to 6 different types of grass blades. Varying the shapes, sizes and color keeps the grass from looking too repetitive and adds a bit of texture to the overall background. Here's the final look with some subtle color variations to keep it interesting. I also need a background for the shop scene, so again, first thing we're gonna do is divide the screen, but this time into kinda like a 60-40 split, because I want to have a big shopkeeper on the left and the shop items on the right. I'm starting off with a shop sign The actual sign letters will be done in Godot as a label. Next up is the big scroll that's gonna hold the shop items. The shopkeeper I made for the game is a frog cowboy, so I decided to make the shop background something like a western desert. I'm not going for a lot of details because most of the background is going to be covered by the shopkeeper and the items. And now let's see how it is in game. But how do I set the backgrounds in Godot? For a single static background, it's very simple. I add the texture rect to the root node and load up my texture, but that is basically all we can do without code. So for the battle scenes, I want to use all of the different variants of the forest and I'm going to set them from code. First up, I preloaded the backgrounds as constants and made an onReady variable with a unique name. Next, I made a function called setBackground that stores all of them in one list and selects one at random. Finally, we need to make sure that we call the function somewhere, and because I want the background to be set as soon as we enter the battle, I'm calling it in the ready function. Let's see if it works. First battle, we get the blue trees. If we go next, we get the pink ones. And finally, we get the green trees. Perfect. If you liked the forest backgrounds and want to use them yourself, I put them up on my itch.io page for free. Stay tuned for more updates. Bye.